Okay, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. It's 6:30. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone for coming. I do need a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we'll go ahead and enter into the budget work session. And just so you three know, I mean, because you are, four. With the camera, it can see your computer, just so you know.
I just have the board agenda up.
That's a smart thing to do. Sometimes that didn't happen, so
Yep,
just letting you know.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so we have before us the August board report.
So before we get started, I just want to publicly say that our new CFO is really doing a great job of understanding our educational programs, understanding what it takes to support those educational programs, and then trying to wrap her head around how this year's budget was written, because it was written in a way that she doesn't write her budgets. So she has spent since she started working with us, she's really been digging into this and was very concerned about some of the things that she was seeing. When the CFO and the superintendent are working well together, there's a lot of communication. She knows what goals we are trying to accomplish, and then the budget gets written in a way that helps support those goals. That's how it's supposed to work.
Right.
We're gonna find tonight that that's not how it's been working.
Okay.
So Jessica came to me with some concerns, and then I shared that with the board chair and asked if we could at the last board meeting have a conversation about scheduling this meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, and I'm going to ask her to walk us through this report that she's provided to you. So
Okay.
Moving forward, this is how she would like to present the financial
Excellent.
statements to you at the board meeting, so that, because this gets you into the details that you've been asking for 4 years and
Yes.
haven't gotten.
Correct.
So if there's anything additional as we go through this or clarifying that you would like to see, just make sure you share that with her, because she'll create this in a way that is meaningful for you. But we felt like this was a good starting point with regard to the level of detail that really the board should have when we're looking at the budget.
Exactly.
So to clarify, I prepared this as we're working towards our annual fiscal audit, which is next week for on-site work, working on the trial balance. And I was pulling things together and knowing that we had presented a budget that had a higher fund balance for this next fiscal year.
Bless you.
Than what I'm currently reflecting. That's where my concern was coming from.
Okay.
So if we move forward with this format for monthly reporting, I would change a couple of the titles.
Okay.
And I'd like to also pull out curriculum within the elementary and secondary programs just so you can see those line items.
That would be great.
So if there's other line items like that you would like a little bit more in depth in, I can pull them out in the program that they lie in, just so that you can see them individually. So to this document that I put together, this is looking at FY23. So that is the year that ended June 30th of 2023. This does not reflect the current year that we're in.
June 30th or July 31st?
June 30th.
Okay.
The fiscal year ends June 30th.
Okay.
Yep. So fund balance, the 23 budget was set up with an estimated fund balance to roll forward of 9.4 million. We were a little bit shy of that. What actually came forward was 8.9, so we're about $500,000 short on fund balance for FY 2023. We had some revenues come in. Our interest income and things came in higher, so it kind of washed that shortfall a little bit.
Was there any explanation why?
I'd have to go back and dig.
Okay.
When we're preparing the budget, it's always our best guess estimate. I think utilizing a document like this going forward, we will have a clearer picture of what that's going to look like when we're preparing budget in May. But there's some transfers that we have to do, and even this report that I am presenting to you tonight, I wanna provide the caveat that there's still a couple audit adjustments that haven't been done, so I'm anticipating that it won't be the final number that's on here. I'm hoping it'll go up a little bit as we continue to make a couple of those audit adjustments.
Okay.
So revenue overall was kind of flat, budget to actual. And then we start getting into an expenses. Please know that the over under column is related just to that program, not to the entirety of the budget.
Right.
So some of those seem really high, and it's because the budget was either non-existent or was very small compared to the expenses that are in that program.
Right.
Okay, so elementary program was 4% under, our secondary was just a tiny bit over. Alternative school was over. It looks like we didn't budget enough salaries and fringe in there, so that's a couple positions that maybe should have been budgeted there that were possibly budgeted somewhere else. I'm thinking potentially they may have been in elementary or secondary just because we have the under on those ones. Our special education program was quite a bit higher. We were over about $1.5 million. This is kind of an unfunded mandate. We have to provide services, regardless if we have the funding for them. So if a child requires a one-on-one, we have to pay for a one-on-one if that's what their IEP states. So in this budget specifically, you have your special education teachers, your SLPs, and your your special education teachers, your paras, and your PSCs, and that one. And then as we continue to go down, you'll notice special education preschool was 100% overspent because no budget was allocated to it. We had expenses there, but no budget for that specific program. Gifted and talented too was significantly overspent when you're looking at the program as a whole. Again, salaries were not budgeted for this. There was a tiny bit budgeted for benefits. Typically you would see salaries and benefits, they go hand in hand.
Right.
So the fact that we have benefits with no salaries is concerning from a budget perspective. So that's why that one looks so off. Dollar amount wise, it looks funky because we're saying that special education's 48% over and this one's 1,400% over, but it's just because of the dollar amounts with the budget.
Right.
For the program. Interscholastic activity, that's our extracurriculars and athletics. That was over partially due to the increased cost of travel and then increased cost for officials. Our summer school program was not budgeted for salaries as well. We run this every year, so that's just an oversight that needs to be corrected going forward. Guidance and health was under special education support services. This is where our SLPs and our psychs are. And then if for some reason we can't hire a special education professional, their contract also comes out of this budget. So that one's just a tiny bit over from where we expected it to be.
That's why the purchase services amount is so
purchase services
high.
is very high in that one.
Because we have contracts for SLPs and school psychs because we don't have people.
Instructional improvement is where professional development takes place for the district. That one's over. The state allocates $140,000 for professional development. Only about $60,000 of that was budgeted to this, but that was not communicated. That even though the state says 140, that a portion of that's being used elsewhere in last year's budget.
Okay.
So that's that lack of communication that I was talking about.
Library education, media, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's our libraries, librarians, library aides, materials to support that program.
Purchase services is the computer program that we use to check books out to kids, the Destiny program.
Okay.
Instructional related tech. Both of our tech budgets came in under budget. partially because we received some money back from E-rate for some Chromebooks, and so it helped kind of offset their expenses. Board of Education, which is the board's budget, this also has audit coming out of it, so when you're looking at your purchase services, you did not spend $67,000 on contracts, but audit comes out of this line item, our E-rate contract comes out of this line item, legal comes out of here, and then some travel associated with the board.
Can you tell me what this is for again, the Board of Education? You said that's just for
it's
this board?
Yes, yep.
I'd like to see that itemized. I wanna know where we spent, $67,000.
So 31,000 of that is the audit, 10,000 is E-rate, which is a company that we use to get rebates back on, basically the money that's collected on phone bills, that Federal Trade Commission money that's collected on phone bills. We're able to, through this program, get money back on our internet services, our bringing technology into the classroom, that kind of stuff. We get rebates back on this, so it helps offset.
Where does that show in revenue?
That shows up under the revenue from federal sources.
So we pay 10,000 to get 212,000.
And part of that is some other things in there. It's not just straight E-rate in that line, but yes, we get a chunk back from participating in E-rate, which is also where we got money back for the Chromebooks, is that E-rate. So it is a worthwhile service. It does benefit the district.
Yeah, I would still like to understand
Yep.
that better.
I'm gonna make a note. Just a
Thank you.
whole purchase service. Okay, next one is our administrative technology program. Again, we're underspent on this one. The next,
Like the district administration program? That's
I'm
under
gonna
Board
have
of
to dig
Trustees.
into that one.
Okay,
So you have, I apologize, district administration program, that's the superintendent, that's part of the district office. And then you have the school administration program, which is our principals, at all of the schools. And then business operations is the other portion of, the district office from a finance perspective.
What do you mean from a finance?
So that's where all of the finance team lives in that
Okay.
spot.
Yeah, can we get a breakdown on the admin, at the schools, what that, so it's 11, 13, are we doing 11, 12, 13 schools? How many schools do we say we have now?
We have 11.
11.
So those.
I think we have that, don't we, by, school building already, you gave that to us, okay.
Let's see, administrative technology, sorry, I skipped quite a few, that one's under budget as well. Then the next four are all related to custodial and maintenance and grounds. In total, for all of those programs, we were overspent about $572,000. A good chunk of that came from purchase services. The snow plowing, being so over, that was a chunk of the grounds overage. Security and safety, they look to be quite a bit over. That's because we purchased a bunch of cameras out of that budget. Separate from the cameras that we were waiting to be purchased, those have officially been purchased and should be arriving any day now if they didn't arrive already. Then you have your pupil to school transportation, that pretty much broke even, and then your general transportation, which is everything yellow bus wise, that's not just bringing kids to school.
okay, wait a minute, what?
So your transportation pupil to school is where we bring bus kids to and from school.
Okay,
Your general transportation program is anything outside of bringing kids to and from school.
So athletics and activity bus.
Field trips, those kind of things.
That's not in the interscholastic activity program?
I can give you a better breakdown of what that looks like. There's other things in the general transportation.
Might be more benefit, or sorry, more
Field trips.
Yeah, more field trips, I can give you a good idea
Activity
what that
bus,
looks like.
buses.
Fund transfers were higher than originally presented in the initial budget. The 2.9 that was transferred was for, the siding projects. So those funds were moved over for the siding, into a special fund so that we have that, the POs are going for that. It's already set aside, so those are covered. So if we get down to the bottom of this, total expenditures, the budgeted total expenditures for last year should have been 44 million. We spent 47 million, which is a $3 million overage from the budget that was presented. When you factor in the little bit of extra revenue that we received, ultimately, the budget last year expected the fund balance to be $6.8 million at the end of the year, and we are at $4 million at the end of fiscal year 23. With the caveat that I have some additional transfers that we have to do through the audit, so I'm hoping that number will end up more at 4.3 million instead of 4 million. So we essentially went into fund balance an additional 2.8 million more than we expected to for last fiscal year.
Okay, so we started, and I remember when it was really high, we didn't go back and pull all those. At one point, before we got into this budgeting, we had 16.8 something, and everybody was freaking out because it was so high. So now we're saying we were 3 million over. We're sitting at, what was the fund balance? Oh, here we go. So 3 million, we're only sitting at 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we have $12 million. Where'd that go?
And that was over the last couple of years. We started last year with 8.9.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we started last July, the fund balance was at 8.9.
On the budget that was submitted, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Not what was reported to the board.
Mm-hmm.
What was reported to the board was over $16 million, and the public was freaking out. Of course, you weren't here. We're gonna have to go back and look, because even looking at some of these numbers, because the other thing is, and I know this is just general fund, I get that, but looking at some of these numbers, some of these things were supposed to come out of the ESSER dollars and other things, and so there shouldn't have been, or there was grant or whatever.
Or this salaried person
Right.
was gonna be moved here because we had the,
Right.
or we could just pay the salaries out of this because we're getting these other dollars to pay for this
Right.
other stuff over here.
Right.
That, where people were originally budgeted, but we need to move them back to,
And
yeah,
because
and that was all.
we're hitting what's called the ESSER cliff. Now that all of the ESSER dollars have been spent out, we're having
All of our ESSER dollars have been spent out?
We're almost there. I mean, we're squeaking it right now. We're pretty
Yeah,
much
can
done.
we see that too, please?
I will have to. I had it in my initial budget presentation. I will update it
Thank you.
with where we're at.
I really appreciate all the work you've done.
So all of this to say, we were anticipating when the budget was presented for this fiscal year, it was presented with a potential starting balance in fund balance of $6.2 million. That is now going to hopefully be 4.3. So we're down 1.9 from what we expected. With the way that the budget was written, we were also anticipating eating into fund balance $750,000. So best case scenario, if we stick exactly to that budget and we don't overspend anything, we're still eating into fund balance. So we're looking at maybe having a 3.5 to a 3.2 to 3.5 million dollar fund balance at the end of next fiscal year, which is outside of the threshold that we have set as a district in our policies.
Yep.
I wanted to bring this to your attention so that you're aware,
I
and to
appreciate
maybe
that.
have some discussion about what we would like to do about it.
So statute is 5%, so we would have to be legal, we would have to be 5% of our budget. And I know our policies, it says 8 to 16. We can change the policy. That few $1 million is awful low. The other thing I want is I want an audit of the CFO's access to the network, and I wanna know every file he touched before he left
previous
here. Yes.
CFOs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
not you.
Yeah, not you. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure,
I'm
not so
gonna
much
tell
for
you, I'm touching all the
her,
files
Yeah.
but
right
yes.
now, so-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Can you
do.
say that one more time?
I want an audit of everything he touched before he left, 6 months prior to him leaving.
And I do want you to know that I do have Brian's credentials, because there's
Mhm.
still some things that I have to go in as him, because we're still trying to get access fixed on some of these things.
Okay,
So
that should have never happened. Tech should be doing that.
I understand, but with the way Skyward works, as soon as I inactivate Brian and Skyward, I can no longer access the reports that he built. So I am going through and systematically cloning every single report he built so that they don't disappear on us, because they're good reports and I don't want to rebuild them. But I can't do that if I inactivate them, because they just disappear at that point, because he's no longer an employee, so the things that he created go away in Skyward.
But he doesn't have access to that.
Doesn't matter legally. Here's the problem. You cannot prove you touched it. But that should have never happened. Never. See, that's why I get so concerned about the security on our network, just for these reasons. And you know, there's nothing we can do about it now. Okay, we gotta think of something else. Somebody else needs to, number one, tech, there should be an admin access, somebody with admin rights that can go in and move all of those reports that belong to him to your profile. And if they don't know how to do it, they need to call the company and get support.
Tech support.
There's a cloning mechanism, so,
We'll work on that.
yeah.
Yep, and that's, at least we can identify, and I'm not upset with you, I'm upset with the overall project, or the overall picture of the thing. At least we could identify a timeline of when, who was touching with his access. Cause I am very concerned, I know we have reports that show $16.8 million. Because it was a lot of money, and then as time went on, I just wanna know where's the money at? It's not here, you know? Well, I'm very, very thankful for the work that you've done, and for your skill set and your honesty and your transparency. You are a rare gem in today's world, and I am very grateful for you.
Yeah.
And for doing all this
Yes.
work. Yes,
Yes.
yeah, I really am.
So, like I said, this is the format that I'd like to present the budget in next year, but I'd also like to transition to using this format for monthly reporting. It will have an overall summary roll up like you're used to seeing, but I'd
Mhm.
like to give you these details by fund, for going forward.
Yeah.
I think this is easier to see, what you're looking at. And then my suggestion for moving forward is we'll have the budget, the month to date, the year to date, the encumbrances, so we can see how spent the budgets are. So that we're tracking as the year goes, that we're not 100% used as of January for something that we're not anticipating to be
Yep.
fully
I don't
expended.
understand why we've got $65,000 less than our tort levy should have
Yeah.
So
been.
that's a fun, the tort levy is super a fun thing, so the $65,000 actually comes from another spot. That I got, let's just say I've learned a lot about how this stuff, so that $65,000 that you're looking for is actually the other local revenue.
Oh,
But the way
65.
that the state has us presented, they make us put the full tort
Yeah.
levy up there, but we don't actually ever receive the full tort levy. I can walk you through the L2. It's not my favorite document, but I am getting to be real friendly with it, and it'll kinda show you why, even though we're forced to budget at that amount, it actually comes in another spot.
Yeah. So, for this current year that we're in, well, we just started another, do we need to submit, an amendment to our budget?
We will be able to submit amendment in February. I wouldn't
Okay.
recommend doing anything before then.
Yeah.
it's by default, we're gonna have to amend it because
Right.
the fund balance is different than
Yeah.
what we initially submitted, so, and then there's been some small changes that we've done that we've talked to you about where we're kind of basically just we're truing out some of the budgets and I'm moving the money where it should be.
Mhm.
So they're all within the general fund, it doesn't change the overall budget, I'm just moving money from this
Right.
pot to this pot to make it more accurate.
Yep.
But the overall budget for the general fund has not changed, it's
Right.
just changing buckets, so we'll have to true that up as well.
Yeah, okay.
When we do the amended budget.
Yeah, and after the audit and all that,
Yes.
will be more
Yes.
accurate.
Yeah, the other wrinkle in this, so not only do we have the ESSER cliff where all of that funding has now kind of been depleted, and we were utilizing that, we also have the change in, how we're receiving funds from the state, so we're no longer doing enrollment, it's ADA.
Yes, yes.
So that is also, that potential reduction was factored into the budget, but if we don't have
Right,
children in school, it is going to impact
The money's
the money
received.
that we receive as well. So we have a couple different things kind of playing against us at the moment. My other concern is the track project and the activity buses. Were budgeted last year, but funds were not set aside for those projects. So we are moving forward with them,
Okay.
but we are gonna also have to eat into fund balance for that, cause those were not budgeted for this year.
Yep. Does this reflect the eating into the fund
It
balance?
doesn't, so that's just last year's, I just wanted to show you where.
Okay.
It reflects eating into the fund balance with the difference between
Yeah.
where we should have ended and where we think we're
Yeah.
going to end.
But those expenses
But those
for last year that are now carrying forward to this year, cause those projects weren't completed last year, I mean, ultimately, they would've just reduced fund balance on this sheet. They're just gonna reduce fund balance current year.
More than what he already
Right.
had planned for us to do. So part of what we were hoping to talk about tonight is, kind of brainstorming with the board, ways to cut back on what we're spending so that we aren't going to eat into fund balance as much as the budget was built to do.
Can I ask a question before we get deep into that? In looking at this, it's pretty obvious salaries and benefits, which is the bulk of the budget anyway, were not properly budgeted for this year. What's your comfort level to say to us that the salary and benefits budgeted for this year are more accurate than what we're seeing here?
I will feel better giving you an answer on that after September
To
payroll.
open this, it's for 2022.
Because, you know, there's, what, 3 or 4 categories here that we spent money for salaries, and there was nothing budgeted.
Yeah.
Brooke and I already have a meeting set for us to go through once the September payroll starts, because that's when a lot of our contracts for our certificated employees start, to go through and make sure that everybody's budgeted in the right spot, and that will give me a good spot to actually look and see annualizing it, if we're in the ballpark. I know that's not your favorite answer.
And in looking at this, some of the larger dollar categories where salaries and benefits were overexpended, do you have a read on why that happened?
And some of them, it's because salaries weren't budgeted there in the first place, and they should have been.
See, my concern is this, that, you know, we set the budget, and then, you know, you go through a hiring process in some of these categories, and whoever's doing the hiring has to look at this at the same time.
Yes, I would agree.
You can't just go out willy-nilly and hire people and pay whatever,
Yep.
and then say, oh, we overexpended.
My goal is to have a salary salvage tracking as well, which I don't know if that's happened in the past, I haven't found that. So if we have an open position that's not filled, we should be able to say if this position's open for 2 months, we saved this much in salary. So that if somebody comes in a little bit higher, that should offset where they're coming in at, or higher or lower. So I'd like to track that, and I'd like to make sure that's something that I've talked about, going through. I have this very detailed spreadsheet, Bob, that I'd be happy to share with all of you. But I'm going through and actually breaking it down at each level, and then adding the employees into each of these programs to make sure that what we said is in the budget is actually what should be there, so that when I go to make the budget next year, I can make sure we have the right money in the right spots. You should never have benefits in a budget without salaries.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple other anomalies in there too,
Yes.
where you spent drastically overexpended salaries and yet underspent benefits.
Right, and then that's again because I don't think the ratios, ultimately the general fund rolls up into one. So in theory, if we were to put all of these together, in theory, hopefully the salaries and benefits, with the exception of the overspend on special education, they should be right. So it's just reallocating the mix. I don't think that was done very well previously. They do all roll up, they do essentially should tie out, but we need to do a better job at that. We have to do a better job at that.
I'm glad you put it that way.
265,
No,
262.
it's a have to. I can't, this doesn't, I really I've been struggling with this since I started, because it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
We should be able to, at any given point, be able to tell you that these 10 people are paid out of this line item.
But as of June 30th, July 1st, you've got concrete numbers
Yep.
basically in every category from revenue through all the expenditures. And
So that's
the numbers are what they are.
right. And that's what I'm trying to true up when I'm saying, because even this current year budget, when I was going through it, there's schools that have, in the elementary program, that have library aides, but there's no budget for library aides, but another school maybe has double what they should. So we've just gotta clean up how everything looks in the budget. It's been a fun puzzle.
There is one
He did it
piece of this that
He
I'd
did
like a
it
little more detail.
Yes.
And that's the purchase services in maintenance.
And maintenance, yep, I would be happy to detail that out.
Yeah, so we basically in February had according to the report we were given, we had a fund balance of $14.4 million.
When was that?
Which report was in
February 2023, the budget status report.
But you
have to remember that brings in all the funds, not just the general fund.
Right.
So we had extra ESSER dollars at that point, so that's not maybe.
No, the ESSER dollars were never in anything we saw.
Nothing
But,
was, no.
but in February, when you look at fund balance, it looks like we have more because we've budgeted for salaries and benefits for all the way through August.
Yeah.
And we've only spent 6 months of the salaries and
And that's
benefits.
Okay,
So
but when
that's
you
also
look-
when
And that's when
we
you
get
get your-
SBA.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we get our.
When you look at the 22-23 budget that was presented, the unappropriated balance was 13,122,000.
Okay.
Okay, that was for 22-23 year. But then if you,
is that all funds or just fund, general
that's all
fund?
funds,
Yeah,
13 million.
So we're only talking general fund here.
I understand that,
Okay.
but the public was, here is the problem for the public's perspective that I keep getting inundated with, is you only focus on the general fund, but the reality is we have all of these funds. So when we have the budget and we approve it for all of these funds.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have 13 million proposed budget for 22-23, and then you come to the 23-24, I popped it up, where is it? Here it is. And our budget unappropriated fund balance is now down to 7,965,000, all funds. Okay, where did those 6 million in funds go when we're supposedly always gaining money? And the fact that we have never been accurate, it has never been accurately reported to us with respect to the ESSER funds. And now I'm learning with all the funds. I mean, it's just not been accurately reported. We did have an incident where, it was, I think I have to be cautious with how I say what needs to be said. but, it was brought to our attention and it was addressed that, things were done inappropriately. And it was acknowledged that they were done inappropriately because the boss told me to do it. I'd really like to know how many more things were done wrong in violation of various laws because the boss told me to do it. You were not the boss.
Yeah.
So that is extremely concerning to me, given with where we're at and the fact that there was a charade the entire time I've been sitting on this board.
Well, I think that this is the reason that you were never getting your questions answered.
We knew that.
Absolutely.
That's why we kept pushing for the numbers. That was my whole push for because I wanted them to explain to her why it wasn't right, but they would never meet with her.
No.
And they would never give her anything in an email, and this is exactly why. And the ending, the balance, or the general fund, the fund balance was 14.382639 in February. So that's a $10 million,
But I do-
$11 million
I
difference.
But
do
we
have
still
to
have
tell you
6
we-
months of
Yeah, that's,
salaries and
Yeah.
benefits that
that
come from
would be an
that.
accurate number, and I can tell you without a doubt, working with Chelsea, that these numbers, the numbers that were presented were accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubts about that, it's just the presentation that's confusing. We did have 6 months more of expenses, and payroll being about 95%, 90 to 95% of the budget, that makes sense to me why there's such a large balance in February, because we have 6 more months of payroll to make. So yes, that's going to go down as we make those payments.
Right, but that was never how it was presented.
Right.
That was never the thing. I mean, we got the payroll was gonna go down, we got all of that, but as far as the fund balance, that's why, and I think the busing and those things were supposed to come out of the ESSER dollars. We'd have to go back and look at so I remember Bob and I had the discussion, so we made the motions together trying to figure out the money. And I think that was all supposed to come out of ESSER dollars, so and we weren't supposed to be out of ESSER dollars except to do, there was 2 things we swapped, and I don't remember, we decided one could come from the ESSER dollars and one came from something else, but we would probably have to go back and look at the video and try and
Yeah.
remember.
What meeting it was
Yeah.
and watch 4 out, 5, 6 out.
Yeah.
We did agree, I think at the end of last year, that we were going to fully expend the ESSER dollars by the end of last year, or at least fully encumber them going into this fiscal year. And we were using those dollars for the science and the ELA curriculum,
That's
so,
correct.
so we did do that. But I do think you're right about the buses,
Mhm.
and
But I think this is why so often we were presented with a project or an expenditure and we'd say, okay, where's the dollars coming from? Well, they're gonna come from here and then we'll do this and this and this. But then those projects never happened and they were never pushed forward because the reality was we didn't have the money to do it.
Well, to be fair too, with the activity buses specifically, we have had an order with them since last October. They cannot get the part to finish the bus so we can
Yeah.
get the final product.
I understand that. I'm
But
talking
the
about
money
like the
should
doors
be
at the junior
right.
high and
Yeah.
and those projects. There
Yeah.
was always that money was
Right.
yeah. Yep. Let's get.
And I am.
And the board would approve the project and then it would never happen, and so then we revisit it and okay, then we're gonna do and it was never moved forward.
Mhm.
The projects never there was never follow through on the project because I think in reality the money wasn't actually there.
So one of my recommendations, because we are still waiting on the parts for the activity buses, we can cancel that order if we so choose. It'll cost us $500 per bus, it's $1,500. I did not put the RFP out for used activity buses yet, because I wanted to have this conversation before making that out
Okay.
there.
Well, I am curious, the general transportation program, was stated that this is activities and athletics. And
no,
then
I misspoke. Activities and field trips.
activities and field trips, so there's no athletics in this.
I don't believe so. Jessica was gonna look and make sure. The athletics should all be in the interscholastic.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, so Ramona, the highest that I've seen the ending fund balance on the audit report was back in 2021. And that ending fund balance in just in the general fund in itself was 6.9, but the overall ending was 14,066. It's just so hard to depict a fund balance mid-year because like we do get in that salary-based apportionment that's supposed to be spent over the rest of the year. So
It was really high at one time because we had a whole conversation of we needed to spend the money, move, and that's part of
Was
where
it
the-
16 million or was it 16%?
I think it was 16%.
I think it was 16% because the highest fund balance it looks like we've had over all the funds was back in that 2021.
Yeah.
Right, but you're looking at the audit,
I
so
know.
so the fund balance would have been higher because it was over the 16, we had more than 2 months, and that was when the board made the decision to move the 2.9 million into the capital projects fund, which is there.
Yeah.
So that money that you set aside for citing projects is there.
I would tell you that if we get this kind of reporting on a monthly basis, don't worry about what that fund balance is.
Right.
It's gonna
Time to worry
fluctuate.
about that.
No, I get
is
that. I've been
at
sitting
the
here
end of
4
fiscal
years.
year.
Yeah.
If we're monitoring everything in the
Right.
year as we go along, and it as it should be, that fund balance will be fine in the end.
Right. No, I
Exactly.
get that. There's just a lot of other things I would like answers to, and the only way for me to get my answers is to go backwards because, yeah.
So I can tell you a chunk of that general transportation is oil and fuel consumption for the maintenance department. So, when maintenance fills up at the bus with, where we have fuel, we have to do a transfer to allocate that over to them. So that's what's sitting in that general transportation. That was $27,000 of that budget. The other big chunk of it, give me just a second and I can tell you.
So there were $27,000 worth of fuel and oils
Yes.
that were charged out to maintenance.
Yes, correct. That's part of that, general transportation budget. And then the other big chunk looks like it was GMC Sierra 2500 Pro, a truck for transportation department. That was the other chunk of that general transportation. We purchased a truck for the transportation department of it.
And it was for how much?
42,872.96
Yeah, there you
possibly.
go. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that truck
It was
purchase.
$42,739.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a little bit more that we
Yeah.
bought for capital expenditure.
So, that's what that
$40.
capital expenditure was a truck for the transportation department, $27,000, and general transportation was for fuel and oil.
Was that
And that-
supplies and materials?
That's under, the supplies and materials.
So that just about, if that truck wasn't in there
Yes,
But,
and the 27,000, it's a lot closer. It's not 140%. It's
Right.
like
right, but Brian
3%.
budgeted $5,000 for fuel and oil for the for the facility.
so
It's
it
just
is
real
my
smart.
goal to clean up where things are budgeted for. We could do our best with this year to try and move things around. At a certain point, we're just gonna have to look at it overall with the FY25 budget. This will be very detailed and very clean, and they should be where they're supposed to be.
So so we have insurance for 22,000 in transportation, pupil to school, and we have insurance 22,000 for grant transportation.
Our ICRIM premiums are split over multiple
Okay.
budgets. So you'll see insurance in multiple line items, so
There's
transportation,
one in the
pupil,
Board of Education.
Right, which I'm assuming is more of a liability insurance.
It's
that's
just
all
all
of our
part of
ICRIM.
ICRIM.
If you add it all up, it's our ICRIM premium for the year.
He
Okay,
just
so-
spread it out
It's just
over
split over
different-
different departments within the fund.
Okay,
For example, custodial has $125,000 of that expense
Mhm.
because that's related to the buildings.
Can you clue us in on why we had $17,000 in benefits and the general transportation and yet virtually no salary?
Good question, Bob.
I have a feeling that there was a journal entry, I can look, it just taking me a little time to dig on them. Let me see if I can pull that real quick.
He did that in several places. Where we had no salaries and gifted and talented, and 1,300 he budgeted for benefits, but the benefits for that position was 24,000.
Yeah, right.
Ramona, I think I saw where your 16,000 was coming from, and actually it was last year's audit, cause it was almost 16,000 right on the dot, between
Million.
16 million on the dot, for, all of the funds. And then 8.9 was the general fund, so that's actually the very highest. now.
And when was that?
That was, ending June 30, 2022.
That's when we made the decision
Last
to
year.
move
Yep.
money. It's the end of the capital project.
That was in the audit itself.
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at it right now.
So the majority of that is workman's comp, that's being charged to that general transportation. So it looks like instead of charging workman's comp to where the labor is, it's just getting charged there. Yes, Randy, that's how I feel too. So the $17,000 in that budget, $17,707.15 is workman's comp insurance that we pull from to pay into.
Workman's comp for what population?
Probably for the transportation department.
Transportation and potentially facilities as well. I have found when I'm looking at the budget that workman's comp is not equally spread across all departments. It kind of lives in a few select departments, and then things are just rolled into it. So you may, this is just an example, I'm not saying that this is the
Yeah.
case, but like elementary and secondary education, the workman's comp for that may not be in that budget, it may be in a different budget, and so that's skewing the numbers.
Yeah.
Cause I'll just move the salaries.
And it's that the salaries are being charged to the right spot, it's just for some reason workman's comp is being charged to a different spot, so.
Just gotta
we've gotta
look
kind
at
of-
that little graph to see if we're tracking right, and we're tracking great. That's all. We never Oh yeah, we saw red, blue. Remember, as long as the
Yeah.
blue didn't overtake the red, we were good.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I love that report that she's provided you guys. I think that's
Mhm.
fantastic and will really help.
Well, you know, now that it's end of 3 trustees' terms and they're finally getting material they can do their job with, that's great.
I will be, like I said, I will be prepping this for all funds, and then there'll still be a summary page that rolls everything up for you guys that
Okay.
has the comparison, but I would like to give you this level of detail. I will pull curriculum out into elementary and secondary, so that you can see that. Is there any other categories you would like me to pull out specifically to highlight, so that I can make sure that you can see them?
Yeah, because my other question would be, because I do know that this was also, a practice of how many of those other funds offset this, you know? For instance, like the, I'm curious for the special ed, that we were back over here, the program where the speds and the paras and all that, how much of that may have been reimbursed, if any, and where is the Medicare?
I can tell you that the
And all
Medicaid
that.
transfer has not been done, which is why I'm anticipating
Okay.
that this fund balance will increase a little bit.
Okay.
Because we haven't completed all the annual
Okay.
year-end transfers. Like I said, I'm hoping we'll end at 4.3. There's
Okay.
a couple things, that's why I said this is estimated, this is not final, we haven't completed our audit, there's a couple
Right.
adjustments that have to be made. But I can show you, as part of our audit work, Chelsea's been working super diligently to balance out all of the funds.
Okay.
So there were some overspends in like our title program where we had to move a little bit of money from title into the general fund because you can't expend a federal award. They won't let
Right.
you, and you can't
Right.
roll forward the negative balance. They won't let you do that either. So we had to move it to the general fund. As part of our wrap up with that, I'd be happy to present our adjusting journal entries that we had to do to
That'd be
clean
great.
up
Yeah.
the programs. And we have already worked really hard, specifically the title, to identify exactly which employees are going to be in that program. We've calculated what the benefits are gonna be, so it should be very clean next year, barring any changes in employees. Hopefully that doesn't
Right.
take place, right?
Mhm.
But it should be very clean, and if there is any over, it should be very minimal.
Yeah, so I think we need to see the literacy budget, because the state looks at that as separate. We need to look,
That's a separate fund, so
Yep.
yep.
we need to see all those other funds.
All the
You
other
will-
funds.
You
Right.
will, you will
Right.
see them
Same.
in this format.
Yep,
Perfect.
and we also need to be cognizant of and understand the preschool, because the preschool is a federally mandated school, but it's always been just sucked in with whatever.
Right.
It
It's
should
never.
be a separate fund.
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
we can track it.
Right,
And
Right.
there's very little preschool money, so it would show definitely show an overage because we're required to provide the program, they don't pay for the program.
so as long as we can understand that, you know, cause we've asked and asked and asked, but I would like to know the federal mandate, what does the mandate look like? What is the cost? What are we getting paid? You know, all those, because we used to run two, and we used to run them
Right.
just fine, and for whatever reason, this one, it's like the ugly stepchild, I'm sorry, it just gets thrown wherever and done whatever with,
So
you know?
I think when we do September financials, this will make more sense because you'll be able to see all of the funds, and I think you'll get the information that you're looking for presented in this manner, with a summary on it. I just didn't have enough time.
No, you're fine.
last Monday and today
I
to pull
appreciate
that.
the fact that you saw enough that you're like, man, somebody
We
needs
need
to
to
see
have a
that.
conversation,
Yeah, that
and-
was
yeah.
awesome. I am
My-
so grateful for that.
Yeah, my
That's
biggest concern
perfect.
is, what do we wanna do about this going forward?
Yeah. Well,
I think something that we might want to consider, I know Jessica said that obviously we have to do a budget adjustment, and she's saying in February.
That's just the state deadline for when you
Mhm.
upload amendments.
Okay, so,
We can
so
do it
sooner
before
than
then,
that.
it's just, we have a deadline for the state to get it.
And that's for 23. Our 24 budget was done off of the 23 budget.
Right. Mhm.
So it's as messed up
right,
at this point as the 23 budget. I think that we need to consider
both of them together,
correcting the 24
Yeah.
budget as well.
yeah.
No, that was my message, we will have, we're past the point of amending the 23 budget.
Okay.
So we will amend the 24 budget to true up what we need to true up.
I think we need to see
Well,
both of
I think
them, yeah,
that's
I
what
did.
I was saying.
No, the 23 budget, so we go into it as completely overspent.
But the 23 budget is what you're looking at in your
Yeah,
hands,
we
we're
have-
down
Right.
24.
That-
So
that-
that's last year,
that
that's
year's over
done,
with.
we
You
can't do anything with that.
There's nothing you can do about it.
But we can amend the 24 budget, which is the budget we're currently working with, to
Right.
reflect that decrease in fund balance. It's not gonna change anything as far as, if we even spend to what we said we were going to spend to, in theory, if we can find some savings, we should only eat into fund balance by 750 to $1 million, depending on what projects we continue to, if we decide not to do activity buses, that could potentially help. But it just basically changes our percent that we have available in fund balance.
Yeah, but the activity buses are the small, they're okay.
Mhm.
So the other
Um,
thing we need, sorry.
No, you
The other thing we need to see and we need to understand are the levies and what we promise the patrons, and we need a line item for where those things are. And back to Randy's point, I know we're over the year, but we have to submit, even with this year's budget, prior year's budget. So
No.
if we submit this, it's incorrect, which makes this current year look even worse.
Yeah, once
So-
we get through audit, we'll be able to finalize that.
Yeah, so even when we submit, there will be a correction, it just won't be amended.
Right.
I still think somehow there needs to be an explanation of that, because here's the thing. People a lot of times will go dig up our budgets and look at them and,
So, I maybe, I'm gonna put a caveat on here, I believe I can address this in the management's discussion and analysis related to our
Yeah.
fiscal audit.
okay,
So I think we'll address that during that piece of our audit, cause then that will be published as to what transpired.
Okay.
That's something we can
okay.
personally put in.
Perfect,
So you have to
because I
account.
know I had to go, when I ran, I had to go to Coeur d'Alene because they couldn't provide, I think I got 1 year, they couldn't provide anything I asked for. So I had to literally go to the archives at the library and dig through all those years.
Yeah.
And if I ran across something like that, you know, it would be great if there was already an explanation, instead of it becoming just some narrative that somebody decided to give with it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
You know?
Yep.
I'm really concerned that the public has something tangible with,
Our audited financials, if we put it in the MD&A, which is management discussion analysis, will contain that statement.
Yeah.
Which is what people should, that's our report card, essentially.
Yeah.
That tells you, that's the Super Bowl of accounting. All the
Yeah.
work you did for a year gets wrapped up in a pretty package and it tells you if you did it right or not, so.
yeah. And do we publish that with an amendment to our budget? Can we publish that with an amendment to our budget?
I believe we are past the point of being able to amend the 23.
This
budget.
one, right,
Mm-hmm.
but we're gonna amend the 24, we're gonna have to reflect correct numbers.
Yes.
When we show our prior,
Right.
I mean, we can't propagate the same bad
You can't-
numbers.
You cannot change those numbers.
I can't change it.
Those numbers are set.
Even when we submit
So-
this year's budget, we have to show all those prior, 3 years prior.
But, so, your budget is your best guess estimate of what you think is gonna happen. Like, any plan, you've got wrenches. We just happen to have, like, the whole pipe with the wrench this year. So even though the budget said that this is what we're gonna do, the plan didn't execute like it was supposed to, and that is okay. We just need to fix next year's budget to more accurately reflect the fund balance.
That's exactly
What
right.
happened last year, it's a done deal, there's nothing I can do to fix that.
That's right.
We can fix it now. We can fix what
But
we
if-
do going forward.
But I think
can't-
what Ramona is asking for is that when we go to fix it, when we go amend the 24 budget,
Mhm.
that summarization of this was all screwed up,
Yep.
this is how we fixed it,
Yep.
and here's our amendment,
Yep.
they go hand in hand
Yes,
being
yes,
published.
for 24, yes,
Correct,
yes,
correct.
agreed.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because there's nothing worse than
Cause
the
we're
few
gonna
of us.
propagate old numbers again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just your best
I-
guess and all that, I get that, but
Well-
here's the thing, is when you pull this district's numbers for the last 7 years, state numbers and federal numbers and the numbers that are local never add up, never. For 7 years, they have not added up. I know that for a fact because I have all of them and I have them all graphed and charted. They used to be on my website. Well, they're still there, they're just hidden. So that's why I'm saying, and there was no explanation and nobody could ever explain to me why I was always told we're in the weeds. No, we're not in the weeds. This has been
This is
going
our
on for a
job.
long time, very long time.
So, moving forward, transparency is
Yeah.
a huge thing for me. I think
Mhm.
this report will reflect that. I think that it's gonna make it easier for not only the board, but our patrons to see, we have nothing to hide here.
No, we,
There's
yeah, we
absolutely
didn't do
No,
anything.
there isn't, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would like to continue to move forward in a positive manner. I just really need some direction on what you guys would like. I know there's not necessarily an appetite for an emergency levy. That is a possibility if we have increased enrollment. That could bring some additional revenue into the district. We would have to decide that September 8th.
Mhm.
If we were gonna do that, and that's only if we have at least one more student coming than we did last year.
Right now, we are 300 students down.
That's a good thing.
It's not a good
Not
thing
for the
No,
budget.
it's
It's not for the
not.
budget, because again,
Because we
we're
were-
based on attendance. It's
Well, it
we're
is if we're
300
cutting-
ADA,
cutting and cutting and cutting,
Yeah, well, and,
take 95% of that 300 odd, and that's what you lost
Yeah,
Right,
and then
in
we
terms of
can't,
revenue.
and
Yeah.
when Brian created this budget, I asked him to do it based on flat enrollment because I wasn't confident in increased numbers. We
Mhm.
didn't see the increase last year that we
Right.
thought we were going to. He didn't listen to me, and he built it on an increase of, I think, 2 units. So, and we're down just under 300.
So how many, it was 213 units, is that what he ended up doing it on? I don't
I think
remember.
that's-
Okay.
I think it's correct.
241.
Well, I mean, as
Well,
far as
that's
this, if there's
all
nothing we
staff.
can do, there's nothing we can do, except it would be nice to have a little bit more understanding of where it went, but,
Yep, I know.
going forward, I mean, you know, without having, I have to have a full picture, I have to know where all the other funds are, what is the literacy budget, what are all of the ESSER dollars, I know you say they're all spent, but we need to see where they
Right.
were spent, because we were still,
And Chelsea has a fantastic tracking of that, so I
Yeah.
have no problem pulling that together. We can part it in the financial follow-up for the September board meeting. I guess my biggest thing was knowing that we have a very short turnaround on if we were to do an emergency levy. I wanted to get this information ahead of that September, because even at the September 11th board meeting, we're past the point of an emergency levy. I understand that's not something that we're going to potentially consider, but it's just, I wanted to make sure you had all of the information
Sure.
ahead of that. I also need to know if you want me to move forward with the activity bus RFP for used activity buses, knowing that we're going to either need to cut something out of the plant facility levy that we have already set aside for the budgets for that, or we're gonna cut into fund balance more if we continue down the road of making that purchase. We're already well on our way with the track resurface, it is what it is. We can pull it out of plant facility levy, but again, we're gonna have to look at what we're doing with plant facility levy funds and maybe cut a project out of there.
but we can't cut anything we published, that was the whole point of changing
With the
the-
plant facility levy, we didn't
language.
publish what we were gonna do, we had a
Oh,
workshop on
that's
it,
on
so
this.
we
Oh,
have
yeah,
to
yeah,
wiggle
yeah,
room
you're
with that
right.
one.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah, we had said that we would prioritize John Brown next summer, citing at $700,000, and I guess the board needs to decide, do we wait and do John Brown in the summer of 25, and we take care of these projects that we've already
Committed to.
approved, and one of them is actually in the middle of being done.
I
Yes,
was too.
Did all of the funds, are all of the materials purchased for Spirit Lake and Athol Elementary?
I believe Luke addressed that at the last meeting, that they are
He
purchased.
said
Okay.
that they
Yeah.
are, yeah.
And they're looking for storage space.
Okay,
And again, that money has been set aside for that project, so that's not part of the document that you have in front of you today.
yeah, okay, I'm just trying to get all these things
Yeah.
straight in my head. So then, John Brown, and then, what else did we have in the plant facility? Oh, we never paid for the buses,
Right?
right?
The activity buses, but that's not part of the plant facility levy.
Right.
We
How
talked-
much were those?
150,000 roughly. We talked about 50,000 per.
Okay, but
round three.
I am fully aware that we just had a big yellow bus with 13 or 14 kids on it travel to St. Mary's for sports. Okay? What did that cost us? When, if we had the small little bus, it would have been,
Yeah.
I mean, we cannot keep doing that.
I agree.
Especially when 2 teams went down on 2 separate buses. So we either have to,
Quit living high on the hog when we do champagne taste with the beer budget. We're down to Pabst Blue Ribbon now.
I think we might have
Well,
hit
why
steel
are we go-
reserve. I think we might have hit steel reserve, guys.
Did we already approve
That's
the
the Idaho
sports
talk.
schedules?
yes, we did.
Oh, so that was on Monday, right?
Yeah, we did approve
Yeah,
the
so I
sports
was-
schedule.
Okay.
But these buses, these
And that-
little mini transport jogger things, that's been 2 years in the waiting. That, I mean, they've been approved, they've been approved, they've been approved. And now we would say, well, no, we're not going to.
We can
Because
still-
the budget's all screwed up because somebody else chose to dabble wherever they wanted to dabble.
Yeah, and we can still move forward with looking at getting used activity buses. There's pros and cons of that. That's what the RFP is for those used ones and canceling the order for brand new ones.
Right.
Because we're still 2 years out on the chassis for those.
I don't even know how that's possible. Why
I
can't we
know.
just go to Dave Smith or Robino Motors? They got some vans
Tell
right
'em,
there.
yeah.
And
Well,
we
that's
can't
what
buy
we need.
vans, they have to be buses, but there are some buses on the, for used buses in Spokane and in Vegas, so we could look at the specs. I mean, if we have to put two people in a car and drive them to Vegas and have one of them drive the bus back, then we'll do that.
You need a
Road trip to
volunteer.
Vegas.
Yeah, do
Woo!
you wanna do that?
No.
Um,
I see a board training coming
but,
Bonding experience.
Yeah. So when we had
I've
the.
done that before. I went to St. Louis and drove a bus all the way back out
Yeah.
there.
Oh my
When we
gosh.
did-
And Chuck Kinsey followed me in another one.
Yeah, when we did the facilities workshop, we talked about citing John Brown for this year's 1.146 million. Citing John Brown, we said 700,000 is what I remember. We talked about, we did get the securing your future security grant from the state of Idaho for the fencing project, but we said there would be $70,000 roughly that the district would have to kick in to fully do the whole project, and we said we were gonna set that aside. I don't remember.
So we had the fence project, the carpet abatement for Spirit Lake.
Oh, yeah.
We set aside about $98,000 to help with building budgets for furniture and things like that they haven't been able to have because we haven't had the plant facility levy. We did some money.
Some little elf told me that we got storage units out here that we're paying rent on that are
Mhm.
full of furniture.
Why do we need to, yeah.
And we're paying
There's some
$1,200.
options. I mean, if we're paying a lease on that, we could potentially surplus the furniture and maybe send it to auction and try and get some revenue off of that if we're not gonna use it.
We got 12
No,
snowplows we
my
could sell.
point is, why would we buy new furniture if we have furniture in storage?
I understand.
It's different furniture.
What
I would
furniture
have
is
to
it?
defer to Mike
Mhm.
to see what inventory we have.
Right.
But yes, if we could potentially either reuse, repurpose, or get rid of the furniture, then we would get rid of the lease payments on the storage
Right.
containers.
Right.
And that would be a savings as
Right.
well. The other thing we had in there, the John Brown sighting, we had 100,000 for emergency repairs. Because we don't really have the room in the general fund for that. We had a little bit of money set aside in the plant facility levy for assisting with a bus purchase if we decided to go with 3 yellow buses instead of 2 yellow buses. And then we have some wiggle room because you don't always get all the money when you levy. People
Right.
don't always pay their
Don't pay
tax
their
bill.
taxes, yeah.
So we have some wiggle room in there to account for that as well.
And are we gonna see, are we gonna be refunded back the money that the county held back?
We
Because
did put in a demand payment, or a letter
for
of
payment.
demand for the payment of the penalties and.
They're appealing it
They're
though, so.
appealing it,
yeah, and that was
We're
about
almost-
70,000, right?
It was only 30-something thousand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So even half of what?
Mhm.
Oh, that's all right.
It still helps.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Every little bit helps at this
Right,
point.
right, and the siding, where did we get that quote for the siding? Did we ask the people that are doing the siding over here, maybe because we bought?
It was based
We
on
made a
what
guess.
the other schools were budgeted at. We would have to go out to bid for that project, so it wouldn't be something that we would have Emmerich do. We would have to go out to bid. That's our best guess estimate based on what the other elementary
So
school.
they gave us the best
No.
guess? Oh,
We-
Yeah, we
Mike
made
did.
our,
oh,
Based
okay.
on what, the bids were for, the quotes were for Athol and Spirit Lake.
Okay.
That's what
He
that.
felt like the square footage was,
Similar.
similar.
That includes labor and everything, or just, okay.
Yeah, that should be supplies, materials. And can I tell you guys my fun little thing? You can laugh at me. I was really concerned that we were spending so much money on siding. I did not realize windows were part of the project, so when I saw the windows being replaced, I was like, aha, that makes so much more sense now. Why are we
Windows
spending
and
that
doors.
much money on siding?
Mhm.
No, it's windows. So-
And doors.
And
Doors are
doors.
expensive.
And see, all that should be itemized, because then when we go back and we look, we say, oh no, look it, we only did the siding, the windows and doors
Yeah.
didn't get done.
So, and we're pushing hard to make sure that when something comes to us for approval, that it's the full scope of the project. It seems to be in the past, maybe we had some onesie twosies of, let's get this part, but we were missing this part. So really looking at it as a holistic project and not
Yeah.
piecemealing it together, cause that's what kills the budget.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, it does.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
The cameras that we already purchased those?
Yeah,
The
they
cameras have been
actually
purchased.
and they should be received
Yep.
in the next week.
And those are coming out of ESSER dollars.
Okay,
Mhm.
alright.
He put him in safety and security, which is why that budget is so over.
Right.
Some of the cameras, but the.
Isn't there swipe cards too that need to be?
So that's a fun conversation. Again, similar to the bus issue, the technology related to those card readers, they're out a long time. The company has provided a workaround solution. We're just trying to figure out how many we can get with the budget that we have
And
left.
will it work with this system?
And
Right.
they're assuring us it will work, it's just not gonna cover 2 doors, it's only gonna cover 1 door. And so we're trying to see what kind of discounts maybe they can give us, because the reason we put our PO in for the amount that we did for those card readers, was because they ran 2 doors. So we had originally requested 6, knowing that it would cover the 11 doors that we wanted to do. Now they're offering us this other solution for 6, and we actually need it for 11. So we're trying to work with the company. Paul's been doing a great job on trying to facilitate that so that we can move forward with the card reader.
Where is this company at?
It's Adnetics is who
Oh.
we're using.
It just kills me every time we spend money and it goes out of our community, you know, or the greater community.
Well, something as specialized as that card reader, I don't know if there's gonna be a local company that's gonna be able to provide.
We were buying it from a local company,
Yeah,
but
so
their
they're-
source is.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
forcing
yeah.
it from.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
I mean,
So, one of the things that, we need to make sure that you guys are all okay with is, as we're right now we are overstaffed, well, we're definitely overstaffed. And we talked, that's why our elementary meeting went so long today, because, we have some buildings that are significantly lower than they've been, and, John Brown, we knew we were gonna need to move some teachers to John Brown, so we had that conversation today. But, if we get more kids, I don't think we're in a position where we can just hire another teacher so we can have classrooms of 15, rather than having classrooms of 24 or 25 this year. We're gonna have to be okay with higher class sizes than what we've had.
well, I don't think so, because you know why? We gave all these raises based upon this information. So if we have to spend the money, I mean, but once again, the kids pay for it. No, that's just ridiculous. Everybody got a raise, everybody got more money that we didn't know we didn't have, and, you know, it's not the kids' fault we got put in this position. You know, maybe we cut something else, I don't know, maybe we spend the money and have to declare financial emergency and then we cut salaries, you know? I mean, every time we turn around, the kids, because here's the other thing is, I'm still not convinced that everybody that, whether they decided to go on their own or whatever happened from the COVID years forward, you know, there was a lot of staff that went away, and I haven't ever seen anything that we replaced, that we have the same body count in the same positions that we had then, you know? So, I mean, I'm not,
And then if we're going above and beyond, then we are paying teachers stipends because they have too many kids in their
Right.
classroom. And
Or I'm not suggesting that we go above and beyond those numbers, but like instead of 20 kids in a classroom at first grade, you can have 23 or 24 and still do a really good job of teaching, because.
are you gonna have adequate support staff in there? Or are we just gonna short that as well?
If kids require support, that's,
I'm talking about the teacher. Is she gonna have a support person in that classroom, a para?
for
For
23 kids.
what reason?
I taught first grade with 26 kids, and it wasn't ever an issue. The thing that I think sometimes I don't know where we got to where we are, but there isn't really any research that says that class sizes have this great impact on student achievement. Cause you can have a class of 28 fourth graders with a really dynamic teacher, and those kids are gonna learn. And you can have a class of 20 kids with a teacher who's not really dynamic, and they're not going to learn. So it's really more about the teacher, and I wanna make sure we take care
Well,
of
it's
the teachers.
Yeah.
But I'm not suggesting that we're gonna have first grade classrooms of 27, 28, that's too many kids. But our maximum before we pay stipends is 24. So this year to get us through, because we can look at things like auctioning off furniture and getting rid of the storage pods, and that will help, but when 90% of our budget is people, we have to take a look at, and well, all I'm saying is I just wanna be really careful about when we add staff, so that we're not creating class sizes of 14 and 15, because we have 24 kids in two
See, I
first
think
grade
that's part of
classrooms.
the answer to why this budget went awry. You set the budget and then, you know, you get a few extra kids, and so we go way overboard hiring extra personnel without any attention to what the budget for those personnel.
Oh, I agree, but the
You know,
problem
well,
is.
we're not gonna do that again, I'm here to tell you.
Well, that hasn't been the past, Bob. If you look at our numbers, that has not been the past. We do not have, they get paid, the money goes out, but that's not it. The mixture of the students in the classroom are not what they were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. When you have a teacher that's got kids chucking things across the room or darting, eloping out of the class, or those are the ones I'm concerned about, is when.
Well, I'm concerned about that too from a disciplinary standpoint.
Yeah, well, these are kids that have other issues besides disciplinary issues. They're, believe me, they have other
Yeah, they
issues.
do.
That's my only concern, is that,
And those kiddos there, if they are on an IEP and they have support, that support is wherever those kids are.
Yeah.
So we're not taking that away. I'm just asking that we just
Yeah.
consider being okay with class sizes being a little bit closer to our maximum, and right now, actually, like, we have kindergarten classrooms. Twin Lakes right now has 22 kindergartners.
yeah,
We have 2 teachers there. We
right,
cannot have a kindergarten class of 11, that's not cost effective.
right.
So she's gonna, instead of being 20, if they don't get any more kindergartners, she's gonna have 1 kindergarten teacher with 22 kids. Those are the kinds of decisions that we're having to make.
Right, right.
So then we just lost an elementary person, so that kindergarten teacher has a job. We just put her in where we need, and Anna needed additional bodies, so we were able to move those to John Brown because we changed the boundaries.
Absolutely the prudent thing to do.
So that's all I'm suggesting. I'm not saying that we're gonna, but we do have some spots where, and this is always gonna happen, where we have hot spots. So we have fourth grade classrooms with 28 kids in them. 26 is the number we'd like them to be, but 30 is our max number. So it doesn't make sense to add a teacher to get them down under 26, and now you're sitting at 19 kids in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm only concerned about the kids that, and a lot of times maybe those kids don't have IEPs, and maybe they should, but we've been told not to put them on an IEP. We've told the staff to not give kids one-on-ones when the teachers have argued for one-on-ones. I mean, that has happened. It's happened at Twin Lakes, it's happened at Athol. I mean, it happens all across, and that's what I'm concerned about, is we add more students who should have had those supports, and they don't, and now the teacher, that's my only concern, is I just wanna, if the class sizes have to grow, they have to grow, but whatever the mixture of those kids are in the classrooms, and a lot of times the teachers aren't listened to. Because some admin somewhere thinks that they'll be fine, and the admin's not in the class with the students. The teacher is, but that's a whole nother conversation that needs to be had.
Well, a big part of our budget issue right now is because we have so many special ed students in our district, and we have a lot of one-on-ones, we're $1.5 million over budget in that particular
Right.
area. So we are trying to make sure that if we're going to give a one-on-one, that it's a kiddo who truly needs a one-on-one.
Right.
And that's not dictated by the district, the building admin. Has to be an IEP
No, I know,
team,
but they've
so-
been told not to do it. So it is dictated. And especially when you have a superior telling you, do not do it, they don't do it. So it has happened. And it's been, I mean, and it happens in every school district here.
Right. And if there, from our standpoint, if there's conversation about maybe this isn't the right move for this kiddo, it's based on data and demonstrated need.
Mhm.
Sometimes parents will come in and say, my child is a terror at home, I want a one-on-one so that he's successful at school, but when you look at how they are at school,
Right.
they're different.
Right.
And so the conversation then, and Kelsey's part of those conversations, is we can't base our decision on how they are at home. We have to
Right,
base it
yeah,
on
I'm
how
not
they're
talking
at
about at
school.
home, I'm talking about teachers advocating for kids who obviously need help, advocating for kids who have one-on-ones 24 hours outside of the school, but as soon as they come to school, they don't need a one-on-one. You know, those are the situations I'm concerned about. If the class sizes have to grow, they have to grow, I get that. And we should be able to teach and control a classroom of 20, 22, 24, whatever. But the mixture of students we have in today's world, some are discipline problems. The majority of them are nutrition problems. You know, if they're eating sugar cereal and sugar donuts and everything before school, but
Speaking of sugar,
yeah.
Bob's gotta stay awake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if a child needs support, we're obviously gonna provide the support. But we are I'm trying to make really intentional decisions about staffing moving forward, so that we're not creating areas where we have class sizes that are so low that they're not cost effective.
Yeah, and I wish we could do something in the preschool too, to where we don't have to have a staff turnover every 2 years. Cause in the last
Agree with that.
10 years, well, not 10 years, because ever since Joan left, well, it's been 2 years. They last 2 years in turnover. 2 years turnover. 2 years something's wrong. When it's a constant turnover, there's a problem that needs to be fixed.
We have a person coming back for her 3rd year this year, and she's
Yeah.
super happy. 4th, and she's
Yep.
super happy.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
And also, just to your point, we did end the year with 8 open para positions that we weren't ever able to fill
Yeah.
the whole year. And so, I mean, we have to have people, and so there are times where people have requested things that we've tried to post, we tried to get people, or
Right.
they come for a day
Right.
and then say, I don't want this job.
Yeah.
We had a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
is also something we've been battling.
Yeah, that and special ed teachers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can see that reflected in this document are basically a direct correlation between the decrease in salaries and increase in purchase contracts in your special
Yeah.
ed support services is because we can't find the people and we're having to pay a contract instead of payroll.
Yeah, yeah, and that's nationwide. I mean, we have huge school districts in the United States that are hiring anybody off the street because they literally can't hire teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just,
Well, I mean, we're sort of just pushed in a corner. I don't know where to cut or what to cut, or, I mean, you know, obviously we gotta put the brakes on everything right now until we figure it out. You know, as far as the emergency levy, I mean, we already know that, appraisals went up again. And I'm just thinking, you know, people's property taxes in a lot of cases doubled and tripled last year. And now there will be another 3% increase from the commissioners, plus your fire districts. Everybody's looking at least a 3%, across the board. So that would mean that we would have to be okay, especially in this economy, adding, or they don't get a vote, to their tax bill.
It's not an ideal solution.
I'd rather just roll up our sleeves and
Yeah.
try to figure
Mhm.
out where we can cut, especially knowing that there is a potential that in the very near future, we have to go with some sort of a bond, whether it's to add some wings onto the existing schools or we have enough students.
Well, we're gonna have to, the district's at a point where there's just no choice anymore.
Well, right now our numbers actually look lovely.
Yeah.
So but what we don't know, it's fair time. We may have people out there that haven't registered yet who are new, so.
If you're running that far behind, you're not gonna have excess students.
I don't think so.
No.
But with the open enrollment laws, that was the other thing, we will have to take some kids at some grade levels because we have to we have to be able to
Well,
hit
that
our.
might get you back up to where you were.
Right, and yeah, we're not going over.
Yeah. I don't think you need to worry about the emergency.
It's a whole
thing,
school,
because
yeah.
if you're running, if the trend line is that far behind, I just don't think it's gonna happen. at this
I just
stage.
wanted to make sure you had this information
Yeah.
ahead of having to make a call for that decision.
Yeah. So, may I review with you? So your best guess is the ending fund balance coming off of last year is going to be about 4.3.
I'm anticipating that's where it will be once we finalize all the audit transfers.
And we had, in the budget that we built, planned to cut into the reserve by 750,000, which takes it down to about 3.5.
3.25 roughly, if we have to pay for the track, so automatically.
What, 3.5 is what percent of the budget?
Weird. And I didn't
Where-
calculate that.
That 4 million is 8%.
So we would be below 8%, but I believe we would still be above 5.
So as long as we were at 5, we would statutorily be okay.
For the 5%.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we, we could pay for the track out of the plant facility levy and put John Brown off for a year. Or we can pay for it and know it's gonna end up coming out of the fund balance.
How much is it that we're paying on the track?
270,000. I think
I
that's what it was, maybe
thought
245.
we were supposed to be partnering with the school. We gave them an amount that we would pay.
Yeah,
And they've already transferred their portion. We did already pay a portion of it out of last year's funds because we had to buy the materials.
Mhm.
And they've already transferred a portion to cover the color change, from red to green.
and that was.
But I thought it was 125.
Yeah.
I'll have
That
to
we
look.
approved,
Let's see.
that the board approved, because Bob made a,
I don't think it
He
was that
was-
little, it was over $200,000, the whole project was.
right.
And
But they were
the
supposed
high
to have
school-
grants and.
Yeah.
The high
Mhm.
school had, it was, I think they do have like a $10,000.
Booster was supposed to be
Mhm.
kicking in.
So we can go
I
back
could
and
be wrong.
look.
My recollection is in the first go around, we talked about the 125, but then after we got more information, we bumped that up to 200. Now, if our obligation is greater than 200, then we need to do some talking, but that's my recollection is that we agreed to.
We can go back and look, but, I know it's at least 200,000, so. What do you wanna do about that? Do we wanna keep status quo with what we wanted to do with plant facility levy and know that
So 220.
that's coming out of fund balance? In addition to
So
some.
that 200 was not in our planned budget for this current year.
Nope. Well, our capital projects budget? No, he didn't move it.
No, but we can do the, finish the track and do, the siding and still be at the, 5%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just where we're at.
Okay,
We're
thanks.
we just have to, we have to fix policy, but statutorily, we're fine.
Well, and the policy actually says if we go below 8%, then we have to put a certain amount each year in toward fund balance until we get it.
So we don't actually have to change it.
Right.
We're saying, cause our policy says that we will do what we
Strive to do
can.
that,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, we'll do our best to maintain a fund balance between this percent
have
and
a
this percent. So,
$163,600 left to pay track doctor after the track is complete. So
Okay,
that
yeah.
will come out of this current fiscal year. 88,000 came out of last fiscal year.
When's it supposed to be done?
They started tearing it off on Monday.
No, they've been tearing it off.
Yeah,
for
they
a
were
month.
supposed to be back on Friday and they didn't show up, and I don't know if they
I
showed up
talked to the
yesterday.
owner of the company on Monday, when Matt was like, they're still
This
not
week,
here.
Monday.
Yes,
Yeah.
this week. I talked to the owner of the company. The crew that is doing it, several other houses are in the Medical Lake area, and they were evacuated, which is why they were not here on Friday. They were here Monday morning tearing off. I have been assured that the dumpster that is in the way for the Thursday night game will be moved, and out of the way, so that it won't impede where the ambulance needs to park to be on the field, on Thursday.
So we had at the October 12th meeting last year,
It's 221,000. Did you find it?
yeah, but
Okay.
we had, high school offered 10 grand, the Booster Club was trying to get the,
Grants.
50/50 grant. Yeah, and we had previously quoted, or committed to the 175 and then raised it to the 221. But we don't know, 221, 220 is what it was.
It was quoted on August of 2022.
So right now, with, the remaining obligation is 163,000. Does high school have any more to put in?
I know that the 10,000 came over for the change in the color. I'd have to check with Matt and Chelsea to see if there's anything else, but,
I think
Well, they-
the 10,000 was the initial
Yeah,
amount they could contribute, so
initially
there should
said
be
they would
20.
put in 10,000, but then if there was a change, which they wanted,
They
Right.
paid for
that's
that.
their,
Yeah.
then they pay for that.
so I will follow up on that.
And then the Booster Club, whatever it was,
I don't know, did we get anything out of the boosters?
They did a grant, and I wanna say they got like $5,000, so, but we can follow up and verify
Yeah.
that.
so on the interscholastic activity stuff, is that the schools, is that coming out of the building budgets, some of these expenditures?
No, so, that interscholastic budget is the, supplemental levy.
The interscholastic budget?
It's supplemental levy dollars, so it's district dollars. They run those and then we reimburse them for the.
yeah, that's why we need all of these. We need to look at the levies and then what, what we are obligated to the public, what we told them, the language that was in there, and then we need to,
So there's $1 million line item for curriculum.
yep. And I still think it's funny that we argue over curriculum in a school district, but the sports 1.4 million is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought we were no
Which
longer.
we're not even legally obligated to do, although the patrons paid for it, so they get their 1.4 million for sports.
But we said the district was no longer paying for travel.
No, we took away the one trip.
The overnight trips
Yeah.
we took away.
They have to fundraise for that.
Okay.
But there's to state and stuff.
Yeah, we still pay for the trip to state,
Okay.
but they are responsible if they want to do any other overnight trips
Traveling.
during
Yeah.
the
It's
traveling.
If
Yeah.
it's
Okay,
in
additional
season,
traveling.
part of their athletic schedule, part of the conference,
Mhm.
then we're paying for that. If it's an extra thing like going to Butte or stuff like that.
Raleigh Lane.
Yeah, that they have to pay for that.
Or like going to
Sierra
So the
Nevada.
trip to Montana to play
That will
Preston.
That will come
That
out
was
of their
us.
budget, or
Okay.
out of their funds, not district funds. Right.
Are you thinking
Yeah,
differently now?
Comes out of their L club, whatever.
Wasn't that part of their, like?
Yeah, it's
No,
on their
that's
schedule,
Preston.
but it's not part of the
No.
league.
Okay.
That's their extra game.
That's their extra game, okay, yeah, they're paying for it.
Okay.
So I don't know, I think we need to, like, you know, my water bill has doubled. Mine went from 300 in the summer to 700.
Mhm.
So what's the district's?
Yeah,
What's gas?
yeah,
Diesel
Mhm.
doubled.
and it's gonna
My
go
truck
up.
takes $140, it was 75,
Yeah,
you know, it's 140 now. So you add that up throughout the district, water doubled. You know, I think we really need to look into using those wells.
We can't. We-
Exactly, you can.
No, we
They'll
can't.
tell you they can.
No,
They will
well,
tell you that.
right, we have it in writing that we're not allowed to do anything
Who,
with it.
by who, with who, though? The city?
They were put in specifically to monitor water quality, and they are not to be
Water
used for anything else, and I will tell you.
The IDWR.
But see, you
Yeah.
can petition the
thing
water
about that
board.
is, I mean, you could use it.
For
It
water.
would make a small difference. 14 gallon a minute is what that well is rated at. You know, and for irrigation purposes, that's nothing.
I don't know, Zach said it was way enough water to, he said it's an 8-inch well.
The well drillers report says 14.
So,
10.
Somebody pulled that.
Idaho
10.
Department of Water Resources
IDWR.
said, "Hi Christine, regarding the wells for Lakeland School District, the department has regulations against diverting water from monitoring wells for non-monitoring purposes. More specifically, the rule reads as follows, IDAPA 37.030913.
Why would we?
All monitoring wells
Yeah.
and remediation
I don't
wells."
know why we did that, that's, I know.
Well, see, and that's what Zach was telling me was you can petition the water board to use that water, but you have to do, there's steps you have
Yeah.
to do it. And you can still use it as a monitoring well. He said that's big enough, the casting on that well is big enough where you can sink a pump and you can still use it as a monitoring well.
So this is
This is a guy that does it for a living.
But this is IDAPA rule, and it says, when a monitoring well or remediation well is no longer useful or needed, the owner or operator of the well must decommission, abandon the well in accordance with Rule 25, subsection 025.16. No person, in bold letters, may divert groundwater from a monitoring well or remediation well for any purpose not authorized by the director.
Well, we
That's
can
what
get
I'm
it
saying.
authorized by the
You can get it
director.
authorized if you
Yeah.
go, you gotta
Yeah.
just do the steps. You have to go through the steps to get it changed. Which is like a public
We can
comment
ask.
thing and
So who, so
I'll get a hold of Zach.
can you have Zach call me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just need to know what steps we have to go through.
There's
Yeah.
the Water Resource Department. There's an office
And
I
then,
just wanna talk to him.
you know, I was talking to Mike Ferriola about, you know, we spend all this money on shrubs and watering, and we need to step back from that. All those schools were built in the 70s when everything was cheap, and we put plants everywhere and nice vegetation, and we have to water that or it dies. So we rip it all out and put rock in there with some trees, and you have the guzzler to that one tree, and that's it. And you water it for 10 minutes a day, and that's it. You're not we're watering weeds right now at every school.
Well, why, a mature tree, you shouldn't have to water at all, and maybe even some of the plants, but the other thing you could do, I mean, we don't want it to look too institutionalized.
No.
But what you could do is, we could find out about, you know, like from Plants of the Wild or something, if you had native,
That don't need the
yes,
additional
yes.
irrigation.
And you
Yeah.
can get some nice looking things, you know, again, there will still be expense to pull it out in the plant, but you know, if the whomever, I don't know if we have any, you know, the horticulture classes or whomever, you know, that might be a project for them, and we can probably, those kinds of things, you could probably get, funding or resources through the state or even the county, and working with the local resource people. I can't think of the
Well,
names
it's
off
even-
the top of my head.
You know, even like the sewer backs up in the high school. How many times have we
Well,
paid for that this year?
But that's because kids put things down the
I
toilets.
know, but
that
there's
shouldn't
also
be.
problems like Mike said that our plunger can't reach, so it keeps backing up.
The snake.
The
Well,
snake, sorry.
Right, but when
And-
but when it backed up last time and they.
Yeah,
quit
okay,
plugging,
I've heard of that too.
There were there were rags that were
Take
flushed
that
down the
out,
toilet, there were handfuls of metal things that were flushed down
Right.
the toilet, so.
Well, here's the thing,
That's a
is the
student thing,
kids,
that's not
if
a-
the kids start understanding that those things cost them, they have to pay for it. And if we start putting just like you would, well, I'm a bad parent, I guess, just like you would put an itemized list at your house. My poor kids. I remember when my kids would do something, it becomes a checklist. That's fine. Here's how much all of it costs, and guess what? You just spent all your money. So unless you can quit putting rags down there, there's no uniform. There's no clay. Because you're costing this much money. It costs to go to that school. I mean, we can't do anything else for consequence, but I bet you if they start paying for what they're destroying,
And I don't know if those were the like our home locker rooms, if they were visitor locker rooms, like.
Those are home.
Okay.
It's the back, it's the same, it's the one that's been there the longest that keeps backing up, but, I think we've had Servpro go in there a few times, and that's extra money for the district, has to pay out of pocket.
Right, and they're just
You know.
pulling stuff out that shouldn't be
Yeah.
in our system.
I think right now we just learned a hard lesson, and we just have to go forward with what we have. I don't think that we should, unless it really comes down to it, should start taking from things when the rough numbers we're looking at right now, we're within the statute, we're within the policy. If we just have to keep adding and we just move forward, look at the budget we have for this year, whatever amendments when we get to this year's budget, we might have to cut something, I don't know. And then wait until all of our kids show up, see who's gonna show up and what that looks like, because if they don't show up, then we're definitely gonna have to cut something.
You have another alternative. It's a little bit hard to do because when people are contracted, they're contracted.
Yeah.
And essentially, you're not only contracted the salary, you're contracted the benefit costs as well. But, you can do a 3% across the board. Every department, everybody, 3%, or 5%, pick a number. $3.5 million is 5%.
Are you saying, did you say reduce salaries next year, is that what you said? I missed the first part of what you said, trying to catch up.
Well, it's hard to do in the area where you have a high, most of your expenditure is salaries. But even there, you've got some purchase services and supplies and consumables and other kinds of things. So if you take elementary education and say, folks, we're gonna cut 5% across the board, that includes you, includes secondary, includes maintenance, includes transportation, includes everybody, 5% across the board.
In purchase services.
No, in each one of those
Everything.
categories.
Like, you're
Now, it
saying.
may end up being higher in purchase services or in supplies because in order to achieve 5% in that category.
But you're not saying salaries, right?
No, you can't cut salaries.
Right, because we
No,
have
that's
to
what I'm saying,
declare.
it's hard to do
Yeah.
there, obviously.
We've already
The
cut.
only way that works is if, something like Lisa described, that you have somebody who bails
We,
and you don't replace them, and so in elementary ed,
Right.
that turns out to be a cut.
we did cut building budgets already. There's been some stuff that we've done already trying to mitigate the $750,000 hit that we did earlier this summer, when we were looking at things. So there's some stuff that has already been put into motion to try and to mitigate, before we even were fully cognizant of this situation, that
We were
had
just
tried
trying
And
to
you can
mitigate the
approach that from the
750,000.
standpoint of, until further notice,
Yeah.
we're gonna cut 5%. If you get halfway through the year and things look a little different, you can ease off and.
I'm just letting you know we've already cut elementary and secondary.
Can you bring that to the board? That should've came to the board, cause we didn't know about it. So we need to know what you cut and how much.
And it wasn't necessarily a cut, we just took it out of their building budget. So for example, the paper costs were charged to the schools
Oh God,
directly.
not paper again.
No, we're just paying for it from the
We're just
district
paying it
level
at the
instead
district
of-
level and managing it at the district level.
Instead
Same
of
thing with
having
copies
each-
and the copier leases, those are being managed at the district level instead of being, so those were pulled out of the building budgets and put into the district level budget so that it wasn't accidentally spent on that side. So it is a cut, but it's not cut, it's just that we moved it so that it was used for the purpose that it was intended for.
So then, the building budgets haven't been cut.
They have been cut from the perspective that there's not as much there as there was before.
But they're not
Because
having
you
to
took
pay
their
for it.
services out that was allocated to them per building.
Mhm. And they don't have to pay for their own paper now, we're paying for it at the district office level.
And managing, like.
Do we lease copiers all over the district?
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to go to paperless, remember that? Remember
Stop.
the paperless resolution? Remember that?
What are you trying to do?
I'm just saying, we talked about this a long time ago, like 20 years ago, we're gonna go paperless. It never happened.
More s-
Oh, yes, it did for a
Yeah.
slight
For a
while.
short period of time, but
That was
they
the
keep bringing it
stupidest
back.
thing I'd
That's why
ever
we have
seen.
these silly things.
I know.
You have to have.
Now we
paper.
have both.
We have to have paper.
Yeah.
Teachers have to be able to make copies of things and kids need to.
I
be
wanna
able
know how
write
you
on
teach
paper.
kids color without any color printing. Like, just imagine.
You look on the
Imagine,
computer,
child.
this is red,
Yeah.
but if your color skews off, then it could.
Could be orange.
Something
Could be
to-
purple.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. I think we just look at it and say it is what it is until we get all the other numbers and look at the budget we already submitted.
So this can be an ongoing conversation because Jessica's going to provide
Yeah.
this for you every month, all funds. So we'll be able to keep track of how we're tracking and what the bottom line is gonna be for our fund balance. And we just are gonna have to have conversations about,
Yeah, and I think until we
Tighten
get
our belts
through
a
the
bit.
audit and all, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're apprised to it now. We have an idea. We know that probably somewhere something's gonna have to be rearranged, but if these numbers hold true, the 750,000, from the 4.3 million leaves us at 3.25 or whatever it was. I mean, we might be all right through the rest of the year just to hold where we're at,
It's not where we'd like to be,
No,
but what in this world is.
right. I mean, there's not much we can do about it,
So, you tough it out.
Yep.
But, our folks across the district are gonna have to understand, when we say we tough it out, that's everybody toughs it out.
Yeah, and there still might be something coming, like we don't know for
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
Jessica and I are going to go to a staff meeting at every building and just have a personal conversation with people to explain, instead of trying to do it like at the welcome back breakfast where.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, and hey, guess what? She wanted
And put
to
on
do
that smile.
I did
She
say to
wanted to
Lynn,
do that.
I did say to Lynn, what do you think about this? And she was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And Kelsey said the same thing. Like, you guys, we have to tell them.
Two donuts, I
Yeah.
can do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna go building by building during the month of September and just have personal conversations with staff so that they're aware. And I'm just going to implore them to, when they're asking for things, to make sure if it's a need, we need to take care of the needs. But if it's a want, a nice to have, and it's not absolutely necessary, can we wait until and look at it next year?
Yeah, you gotta do that. That's one advantage of kind of across the board cut is they have to self-prioritize. Which takes away a little bit. You're trying to sort out the needs and the wants
Right.
type thing.
Also, the other thing that would be nice to see too is, the money that the state allocated or whatever it was, all the governor's newspaper articles of all this.
For the raises?
Yeah, well, for the raises and for the security and for, all those little buckets they said that they were giving to all the districts.
So, yeah, the security was the grant, so we did just.
Yeah,
We did get
I don't
that,
remember
so.
what all of them were. Because the other thing that we should be able to qualify for too is the other funds that they were giving to the districts, that was for some type of instruction, I don't remember what it was. We had to pay something off with it, but that was,
That's the property tax relief.
yeah, and I think the other part we thought we could actually use, oh, and they were giving us money for curriculum too, where's that at?
Mm-mm. I haven't seen any money for
Yeah.
curriculum.
And
They,
we're not actually getting any money for the property tax relief, it's just the taxpayers are getting a reduced burden.
Oh yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about. This was money, it was like some kind of plant facility thing that would come to the district and we have to spend it on that first, but if we didn't have anything
No, that's the property tax
that
relief.
fit
you're
in that
talking
maintenance budget, then we could spend it on something else.
about. That's the property tax relief that you're talking
And
about.
Yeah.
it's
It goes to
basic,
bond payment first.
Has to go to bond first, and then if we have plant facility levy
it
or
actually goes
supplemental, it
to
has to go to
supplemental
that.
first.
Right, but
And it goes to
curriculum, I
fiscal
think
facilities.
curriculum was in that too. There was something else that we could have bought that was in that.
That's only if we didn't have any bonds or levies on the books, then that property tax at 1.6 million that will come could go into a capital projects, and we could use it for facilities, but only if we don't have any bonds or levies on the books. Did we get any additional ESSER dollars? Was it like $10,000?
No, it's 2,100 for one, and like, it was very, very, very small amounts.
No, that was a waste of time.
Yes,
That
it
was the
was.
reallocation
$2,100.
for people that didn't,
I think it
or
was 21
districts
on
that
one
didn't
and
take
5
it.
on the other, yeah. We'll use it before the end of September,
Yeah.
just to offset a little bit of salaries, but I think it was $7,000 total. So it was enough to do the extra paperwork, I guess.
Not what we were hoping for.
We're thankful for the additional.
At least it covered your time to do it at,
Oh, we are getting a check from City of Rathdrum for
Yes.
$27,000 because when we had the water issues over at Rathdrum, or at Mountain View, they were charging us the wrong rate for either
Yeah,
water
so-
or sewer, and so we overpaid by $27,000, so they're cutting us a check.
Yes.
Well,
So essentially, we have 2 meters there. One is for water consumption, the other is for the water related to the sewer. They were charging the wrong rate on the water for the sewer. And so they asked if we would like it
how many
as,
other schools did they do that?
I would be happy to ask.
It makes you ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did remember we had those issues where we were,
Yeah.
our water prices were way up, and that's what it was, so they're paying us back.
Yeah, I'll have to find all those if I have time. Maybe I can get one of my people to research it. Cause the other thing I would like to have is that when we meet with, our representatives, whoever show up, I'd like to have that discussion with them too. And I would also like to paint this picture for them.
Yeah, that was the intent of
You
scheduling
know.
the meeting.
We spend a lot of money on technology stuff. Internet, telephone.
We
this
are
and that.
getting, we do get money from the state and we get money from E-rate to offset the internet and the WAN, I forget it, wide area.
wide area network.
Yep, we get money from E-rate to cover that. So that $10,000 we're paying to participate in E-rate actually nets us back almost the full amount we're paying for internet and wide area network.
Okay,
So that's a good thing.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I
Can
agree
you
with
find
you.
someplace else to make that work?
Yeah.
We've done it for some Chromebooks. I know that they're, Chad and Justin are super in on that, as far as bringing the internet to the classroom. Anything that brings technology into the classroom, we can look at submitting for, reimbursement on. So we're in the
That's
process
a
of looking
double-edged
at
sword.
Yeah. Yep, okay,
It's a
yeah,
good
I
and
knew
a
that
bad
was okay.
today.
I know, it is a
Need
very
that link.
double-edged sword, cause we have to put it out
Thank
on
you.
their platform for it, so.
But I do partly agree with Bob on that. I mean, one time before you guys were on here, we showed up to a meeting and there was, $500,000 spent on books that nobody on the board knew or
Chromebooks.
off, no, it was on Apple products, they were
It was the macro code.
yeah, for the, admin team, yeah, we had no idea, $500,000. Yep, we spent over $1 million that year on, and why Chromebooks, I have no idea, they translate to absolutely nothing, they're worthless.
Well, I'm just saying that whole technology arena is one to take a hard look at.
Can I,
Yeah.
can I tell you our technology department as a whole was the best as far as their budgets last year?
But that was because we got money back.
Yeah, the partially.
I would like to see those guys get more, professional development, I don't know how much they put in, but
We've been sending them to the IET, Idaho Educators Technicals.
yeah, they need,
Different.
yeah,
Well-
they need some more actual,
We've been operating under the assumption that we had the $140,000 of professional development dollars that the state gave us to allow our people to have professional development, and I only just found out that Brian budgeted $40,000 and then he used $100,000 for salaries.
yeah, we can't do that,
And
that's not fair to everybody.
No, and with no conversation.
Yeah,
He just did whatever he wanted to do, and here's the budget.
Well, this year we get $8,000 per school district plus $452 per 23-24 instructional and pupil service FTE. And then we also get under professional development for dyslexia, budget $1,500 per school district and charter plus $124 per instructional and pupil services FTE.
Yeah, so the dyslexia has to be spent specifically on dyslexia training, and which we're doing. We've brought gurus in to provide that, but the other dollars you're talking about, the first ones you mentioned, the regular professional development dollars, we only get to use 40,000 of them because Brian put the rest towards salaries.
In the current budget is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the dyslexia training, what is the, I can't think of the name, if you take this one class, it's, I don't know if it's the type of training, somebody was telling me about it, starts with the G, I think, I wanna say like Guggenheim or Glugen, something like that.
Gillingham?
Gillingham,
Mhm.
yes. And the reason I remembered it and it jumped out at me is because, I didn't know, do we use
Orton, Gillingham.
VOAC in all of our elementary schools?
Oh, we do now because we've had
Okay.
to be direct about it.
Because there's another, phonics program out there and I can't remember the name of it, and it is that, what did you say?
Gillingham.
VOAC is also Orton Gillingham.
Oh, it is Orton Gillingham.
Yeah.
So we, by using that, do we also qualify then our teachers if they have PD in that or some kind of development? Does that make them qualify also for the dyslexia training that they'd have to have?
No, it has to be because that training is specific to that one program, and phonics instruction is just one part of the overall dyslexia training. So there's phonemic awareness and how to address comprehension in different parts.
Yeah,
to
I wish I could
dyslexia.
remember the name of that, because it's that time of year, so we're looking at all kinds of curriculum. Can't remember the name of it though.
Yeah, Orton Gillingham is really strong.
Yeah, and it was, and it had a whole lot, and I told them, I said, well, they use VOAC, but I didn't know if we used it, so that's great, we implemented it in all the elementaries, awesome, good job.
Yep.
Yay. So our kids can sound out words when they
It's
haven't
not just
memorized
sounding out,
it.
it's decoding.
Yeah.
A lot of kids with dyslexia have poor working memory too, so, learning to decode is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the one question that we haven't addressed was Jessica's request for guidance with regard to the smaller buses.
The activity buses.
Yeah.
So the PO is in for 210,000 for brand new ones, if we did go forward with a used one, potentially it'd be $150,000, so.
$60,000 savings.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And we
that's,
aren't waiting 2 years,
We could
actually
get them
use
sooner
them,
potentially.
which could also reduce our fuel costs.
Well, and I don't know why
Bus
we
driver
wouldn't be able
costs.
to advocate to not be penalized for withdrawing, given
Yeah.
that they cannot.
Regardless, I feel that's a fair fee, the $500. I've talked to them
I feel
both.
0 is a
Yeah,
fair
I
fee.
understand, but I've talked to them a couple times about it, I understand where they're coming from. They ordered the parts based on our purchase order, we gave them a commitment that we were making a purchase, it's the same thing you would have it for a restocking fee. So I don't think it's unfair in the course of business.
I do.
But then
I do.
changing our quote.
Please keep in mind that we do also have to order from this company potentially in the future.
I understand that, but we've also had to endure the company jacking up the price after the fact that after we've committed, saying there's nothing else you can do, you have to pay the price.
Is
So
Is this the same vendor that happened with? I don't think that's the same vendor.
I'm not privy to
That was actual that was yellow buses.
Yeah, it was yellow
That
buses.
happened with,
We're,
that the prices
we
got.
have a PO in with
But-
Carlos.
With who? Harlow's?
Yeah.
I think it was Harlow's.
Yeah, they added 30,000 per bus, remember?
Yeah,
Oh, yes, I
Or
remember.
something like that, because of,
so, I
and we
mean-
go, okay, and, you know,
not disrespecting the relationship that we have with them, but there has to be some neutral ground, some middle ground, where we're not constantly just, okay, you need to jack the price up, we're signing the check. Okay, you're not gonna provide us over 2 years, okay, we're gonna be penalized because we now have to go in an alternate direction. It's not our fault that it's taken so long. And I realize they could argue, well, it's not our fault either, but the fact of the matter is, they gave us a quote at a specific time. I fear what's gonna happen is it's gonna come back and they're gonna say, well, now if you want them, you're gonna have to pay more, cause they've done it before. And so I just think there's room to advocate that, you know what, for this one little moment, we need to go over here and we shouldn't be penalized because you haven't produced what we committed to 2 years ago.
We put that PO in last October, it hasn't been 2 years for that one.
We talked about it last summer, because I was the superintendent, I brought it to you. And then.
Was it last September?
So it
Or
hasn't
It was
even-
last summer.
It hasn't
And
even
then
been
the
a full
PO.
year.
Okay, well, it's just been out there for so
Right, it feels
long.
like forever, but yeah, we had to go through the bid process.
Actually, I think we talked about it 2 years ago and then it was brought back. Cause this
Becky
isn't.
said, well, Becky said no.
So we
I
went out
brought
to
that.
bid and we issued a PO to Harlow's last October.
But to Michelle's point, I do think we need to go back into the board book and look at which company it was that we bought the buses from, because if it was Harlow's, we did a PO based on their quote for buses, and they came back and said, our supply chain prices have gone up, so we're passing that increase to you, and so we need you to issue us a new PO for this increase.
Mhm.
And we did that,
And the
yeah.
board did that, and so if it was Harlow's, then I think they don't have a leg to stand on. If it wasn't Harlow's, then
I'm pretty sure it was, but.
we need to probably just double check
Yeah.
that. Cause it wasn't $500 for each of the 3 buses we were buying that they hyped it up,
Yeah.
it was thousands of dollars.
It was.
So if they can do it on their side, then we should be able to make a change on ours.
Assuming that works out, then at the next meeting, can we cancel that order? You know, we're in one of these situations again tonight where you can't act on anything, all we can do is talk about it. Which blows my mind, but at any rate.
So I can put an agenda item on the board agenda for the mini buses, and ask that an action item be there to cancel the PO with Harlow's and to move forward with a bid for used mini buses. Okay, I will put that on there.
Well, I do have a question because I know at a previous board meeting, we did discuss going out for the used. Did we not take action at that time about the used buses?
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah,
I thought we did.
I think
said.
we did,
We
but
actually, you're right, we did.
We did.
we
So-
were gonna see what we potentially could get, so we didn't cancel the order, but I put the RFP on hold because I wanted to have this conversation.
So we don't need to
Okay.
take
To make
action.
sure
So
that we even need to do
she-
it at all.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're just asking for direction, cause we've already said, go ahead and do the RFP for used.
Right.
But what
I
we
just-
haven't done is take an action to cancel the PO with Harlow's, so I will put that on there.
I understand that, but we didn't take action to cancel the Harlow's thing because we needed to see what we could find out in the used world.
Right.
Okay.
And
That
I
was my
haven't published the
understanding.
RFP knowing we needed to have this conversation.
Okay,
So she's gonna publish the RFP.
So would you like me to go
Yes,
forward and
please.
publish the RFP?
since that was the direction the last time.
Okay.
But there's.
But she
information
wanted
change.
to know, do we wanna just cancel altogether
Because we don't.
and not do that because we're already over.
Because Brian didn't put any money in there for us.
Yeah, and what buses were these again? I'm sorry.
They're
The-
the multi-function activity.
small-
The three
small
mini buses.
Okay,
Yeah.
The
not the
15
special needs
No,
buses?
the three
Okay.
15-passenger minibuses.
Okay, I'm just trying to find them here, cause I'm finding all these buses that we. Bye.
Approving.
Yeah.
And they trickle in, yes.
Yes, I'm trying to find.
So Michelle, you don't think we need an action item to officially cancel the PO with Harlow's?
What I recall from the previous meeting was that we were going to see what it was going to cost. When we had the understanding of what it was going to cost, we were gonna make a determination
So we
at
need
that
to bring
time.
that to you.
So, yes.
Right.
Okay. That's what I thought. And we'll have an update based on whether or not Harlow's was the company
Yes,
that.
Harlow's was, and it was, February of last year. And they raised it $3,000 per bus,
Per bus.
Yep.
February of what year?
22.
22. February of 22.
So it
it's-
was Harlow's.
It's been almost 2 years.
Mhm.
We're approaching 2 years.
And was it 4 buses? So we,
It was,
$12,000?
4,
Four.
2 regular ed buses and 2 special ed buses.
So
and-
$12,000 total that they charged us after the original quote.
Yep,
Mhm.
and then they could not only not meet the timeline, but then they raised the amount, $12,000 if we accept the bid increase, yeah, and that was, I'm trying to see, what meeting was that? That
It
was,
February of 2022.
February 9th, 2022 meeting, item K6.
We'll need to have that conversation with them. And then we can just bring that information for the action item.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was after we accepted their bid and everything, then they
Mhm.
came back and said not only is it gonna take us longer, but oops,
Yeah, you gotta pay us more.
yep.
Okay.
So before we adjourn, just so I'm clear on the things that I need to do moving forward, I have 3 things that I wrote down for myself. One is, Ramona asked for an audit of our previous CFO's work 6 months prior to him leaving. So I'll work with technology. And it was technology, right, Ramona, that you wanted me to work with, to have them look at what
Yeah.
was he in, what,
Mhm.
What files he touched?
Mhm.
okay?
Oh, wait a minute, I might be wrong on that, I'm reading all the notes. Harlow's is in here, but Harlow's, we asked them to honor their bid and they said no also. So we bought buses from Bryson and Harlow's?
I'll look into that
Okay,
for you.
doesn't say who we paid more money to, it just says we talked to both. And we asked both of them to honor their bid and they said no, I don't remember that, but that's what it says.
The second thing that I have is, Ramona, you had, and I don't know if this is a to-do now or to-do
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward, but, what we should have done when Brian left was the tech admin should have had the access to Brian's files, and they should have been the one to clone Brian's reports and then assign them to Jessica.
Yeah, anytime anybody leaves, that should be the end of their access period, their login access period by anybody. So they should have time to take all their stuff, whatever they're gonna do before they leave, because audit purposes, there's no way for us to go and prove in a court of law if there was something, or even somebody just auditing, trying to figure out what happened, there's no way to prove who did it. So if they leave on the 1st, but we have logins on the 15th, you know, and there again, I don't know how great our security is, if you even can tell where the login came from, or
You can.
all of that, but yeah, that should be standard practice.
Okay, so we shut down the logins after the employee leaves, and then, because Justin and Chad have admin rights, they have rights to get into everybody's
Correct.
stuff, so they could clone the reports that we
Yes.
need. We would be able to tell it's them doing
Yes.
that, okay.
Yep. And even if they use like, you know, Brooke's login or whoever's login and said, she could say, oh, it's these reports, or if you had reports and said, you know, it's these reports, or whatever. But I mean, as an administrator, they should have access to all of that.
Yeah, and they do,
Yeah.
so I just wanna make sure that I'm writing this down,
Yeah.
so we get it right.
I don't give anybody my log.
And it happens, you know, but it's really a big no-no. For security purposes, for audit purposes, for everything that should, not only that, you don't want somebody using your login, because then it looks like you did it,
Correct.
Yeah.
you know?
And then the third thing is we will bring an action item to the board to cancel appeal with Harlow's with information from Jessica's conversation with them about whether or not they're gonna waive the $500 fee to cancel.
Well, we also need to know if,
I won't, the RFP won't be back there by the
Okay.
September board meeting, that will have to be in October.
Yeah, there will be,
Okay,
so
so
that
then
we'll
it-
bring the bids to you for the buses in October.
if there are any, I guess, I mean,
Do you wanna wait on canceling before we?
I think it would be prudent to wait
And
until we have
know-
all the
Yeah, we looked at
information.
them when we were
So
looking
we
at
need
the
to know
mileage
that
and all
we have
that
people
online
bidding on the
during the
buses.
meeting.
Okay, so I'll wait
Okay.
after bids.
They were
are
in Washington, I thought.
And if Harlow sees it and asks what's going on,
They're well aware, I've had a conversation with Harlow's already
Okay.
about canceling.
well, it's not
Order.
even just canceling. If they see that and they're able to, I mean, I'm sure they can't, but if they wanna help us in that situation, great. So, just on a second.
Okay, so those are the only three things that I wrote down for myself to do.
Jessica, do you wanna review what you've been asked for to provide? Do you recall?
She's gonna take me copious.
A lot.
I'm gonna pull the information on purchase services for the board, give you more information on the general transportation breakdown, which I kinda already did, but I'll summarize it again. To give you a breakdown on where we're at with ESSER dollars as far as the spend out. Looking at purchase services for maintenance. The request on literacy will come with the September board meeting regardless, cause I'm doing all funds at the next
Okay.
one. You did ask about the St. Mary's travel, what the cost for the yellow bus for the St. Mary's travel was recently.
That was a statement that I made.
Okay.
I wasn't
Do you-
asking you to dig into it.
I can't.
I
You
can
want me to?
absolutely imagine that the cost of one bus with 14 kids on it was exponentially more than if we had a small little
Yep.
activities bus.
Now looking at what was committed by school, booster for the track doctor expenses, and then looking into exactly which company charged us what for increased prices related to the February 2022 bus purchases.
Okay, and then we also wanted to break down preschool.
Breakdown of this, I missed that. When you say breakdown of preschool, was that just for last year, or are you looking at like an analytic for.
Yeah,
she was asking
last year, that's fine, I'm just trying to see, what,
what was budgeted.
yeah, and what,
Nothing was budgeted.
yeah, and what we're obligated to, what is it costing us, and
Right.
if there's any,
How many federal dollars do we get in
Yeah.
preschool? Cause we do get some.
We do get
Mhm.
That are very little.
Okay. I think I got it.
how long do we keep, financials electronically?
As far as,
Everything, expenditures, income, everything, like how far back can you go?
electronically, it would be whatever's in Skyward.
Okay,
Before that, we had,
Oh,
no,
for financials.
we had, mercy me. So, I can't remember the name of it.
some other piece of software.
We do keep paper records,
Mm.
like accounts payable backup and things like that. I think we have 6 years plus the current, and then we shred after that point. Some federal awards were required to keep 7, so we monitor that. But as far as financial documents electronically, it's whatever we have in the system.
Okay.
I'm assuming we would pull forward legacy information, but I would have to look into that.
We've had Skyward for at least as long as I've been at this office.
The audited financial statement
we had it-
retention
it
should be
was
indefinite.
implemented.
Well, and that's what I
So-
said, the audited
In
financials we would
2007.
have
Mhm.
indefinitely,
Mhm.
but electronically,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we.
Financials bid on Skyward go back to 2007.
Okay,
So that's a good,
yeah, that's good.
yeah.
I was just curious, those 2 preschools we used to operate, what its costs were, in comparison to what we have now. I know the times have changed, but, something to look at and to compare, because we really don't have much to compare.
I can look into that, but respectfully, I'm gonna ask that's more of a October, November
Yeah,
follow-up.
that's fine.
Gotta get through audit.
Yeah. Yep, nope, understand, no problem. This was a great meeting.
Sorry. We just felt like as soon as we realized what.
Well, I think it was
happened,
great.
we
I mean-
needed to meet with you.
Yeah, I wasn't, no, it is what it is.
I don't think at least you guys who've been pushing for so long to get answers to your questions, probably aren't super surprised that things were in the state that they were. I was alarmed that they're as bad as, that the fund balance is as low as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm
Every
not surprised, I could
conversation.
just never,
Yeah, every conversation last year was, we're tracking to budget. That's how he presented to the board each month.
Yep.
That was
Mhm.
conversations we had at DLT. So I think this is.
conversations you had at IBB and all the decisions were based upon that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, believe me, that one's kept me up at
That's
night.
what's,
Yep. But that's fine, it's not, it's not, yeah, we'll be fine.
According to our policy, the records are all supposed to be kept for the fiscal year and then +3. So I don't know how long we're keeping them, but that's what our policy states.
We have electronic records that go back further.
That's good, yeah.
Okay. Alright.
Bob, you mentioned stored furniture and storage pods. Is there anything you want me to do with what you mentioned? Is there a to-do item there?
inventory of needs and an inventory of what we have and.
Consideration.
The point was, don't buy new furniture until you see whether or not you got furniture in storage that would meet the need.
We already started that process. We had one principal who, we have a teacher who wants to use tables instead of desks, and so she was gonna move the tables from the staff room into the classroom, and then she wanted to order new furniture for the staff room, and Jessica denied the PO. And so she asked us about it, and then we shared the budget stuff, and she said, okay, that makes sense. So we've already started that.
And I guess the other point is, you know, the storage pods themselves, if they're only half full, then you only need half as many.
And we.
If you actually need any at all.
Right, and I can check to see
Yeah.
what level of capacity there are, but we don't have a pod on every school site anymore. We used to, and so now we have some schools that are sharing because they don't need a full one. But I will check and see where we are with that.
There's one sitting over there at maintenance, I think, or maybe
It's
two.
full of
It
desks
was like
and
3 or
chairs.
4 over there.
So
Four?
all of that furniture and stuff you were talking about that used to be upstairs is in those pods.
Remember when you couldn't walk through that upstairs?
Yeah.
They cleaned it
Oh,
all
and
up.
are in
we
one.
do have one pod over there that's storing the bleachers that we took out of Lakeland High School.
But they bought that one, did they?
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, we bought it.
So we're not
Instead of
paying
renting it.
instead of renting
Yeah.
it. But yes, we're waiting to be able to get those bleachers in Lakeland Middle School. So.
See, administratively, I was never a fan of renting or leasing equipment.
Yeah.
That's
There's
all
no
we-
Because it locks you-
depreciation.
That's
It locks
all
you into
we-
contracts
that's all we do
in
anymore.
such a way that you end up in a situation like this and you've gotta look around and try to figure out what to do. Now, all of a sudden you're handicapped because you got some lease agreement signed for
Well,
copy
and you're not
machines.
supposed to encumber a future board, and that's exactly what a lease
Yeah.
does, so.
So, you know, those are things to look
Can
at
start
least
working on
long term,
a lot of
but.
those things. We
Mhm.
actually just made that transition because we used to own all of our copy machines, but we were spending so much money on the maintenance of them that the lease was cheaper. So that's why we
Cause
went
you get the
that way.
maintenance agreement with the lease.
Yeah.
But you also centralized your copy machines, right? Like you took them out of the classrooms where every person didn't have their own
Printers, they had
printers,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
whatever, yeah.
And now, yeah, each teacher can print from their classroom
Right.
to the copy machine. Cause printers are really expensive.
Right.
Those
And
desktop
ink.
printers are ridiculous.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
crazy.
cost effective at all.
No.
Yeah, I guess my general thought is, you know, look high and low for ways and things that you can do to save going forward.
Mhm.
Without,
And then just
without
report back to us
impacting
what you find, you know, if you
Mhm.
find something that can save you $10,000 a year, that's more than chump change,
And if you're doing it consistently,
yeah.
every little bit makes
Adds
Makes
a
a
up.
difference.
Yep.
add up and make a difference.
Go back to what you have said many times, and that is, you know, when you're in the classroom, you have needs. Make sure those needs are taken care of. But when it comes to the wants and the luxuries, jaundiced eye.
Is that a saying? Why is your eye
It is
yellow?
now.
Why is your eye yellow? Okay. So I will include in my superintendent updates to you anytime we find a place where we can have some savings, and then share that with you, and if it's something you don't want us to do, then you can go that direction.
If we can't use those wells, Bob, we could always drill our own.
Theoretically, you can.
You have
Yeah,
to
and
apply
we
for the
talked
water
about it.
rights
We-
before you can
I
do
know.
anything.
When
I
we,
know,
when we
that's what
did
I'm
the
saying.
development of the big field over there, we talked about dropping a well at that point in time. And that's why, when the highway department redid 53, or 41 through, between the schools there, I asked them to put a culvert underneath.
Leave.
It's there, it's buried,
Yep.
so that we could move water from one side of the highway to the other if we wanted to.
Okay. So are you ready to, end this party?
Yeah, so there's a June 15, 2022 meeting, regarding the buses you might wanna look at too.
June 15th, you said?
Uh-huh.
I think that was the activity buses, but I'll take a look.
Okay, yeah, it's just, it was 4 buses, 2 special eds, 6 buses from Harlow's. And we were supposed to receive some $20,000,
Refund.
Trade-in
value.
trade-in value
Oh,
on
is
the
that what
other
it
bus,
was?
I think,
Yeah.
okay.
if I remember correctly, yeah.
They're, you know, they're just chicken scratch notes, I don't know what it was, but there might be info on there too. Okey-doke, yeah, I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and end this work session. It is 8:55.